morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Welcome, young and not as young. Okay, beginning with chapter 33, verse 20. Chapter 33, verse 20. Ulegad Omar, Moshe said to the tribe of God, Baruch Marchiv God. Blessed be the one that widens, that expands for God. It's an interesting line. What does that mean, that expands for God? What does that mean? So let's see the Ramban. Ramban on Pasuk Chaf. Baruch Marchiv God. Melamed Shayat Chumo Shogad Marchiv Klape Mizrach. Lashon Rashi B'Sifri. So Rashi, if he starts off by citing Rashi, that actually, the more eastward God's inheritance went, it widened. So in other words, if you would look at the map of the inheritance of God, it widened as it went eastward. So that's what it means. Blessed be the one who gives width to God. That's what Rashi says. Now he cites the Ebenezer. Avram Piresh, Kibavurshi Damo Sola Arye, Yomar, Baruch Hamarchiv Oso. In the next phrases, God is going to be compared to a lion. So he says, blessed be the one that gives breath to that lion, meaning Shanasan Lo Gvura, that God, that Hashem gives strength to the tribe of God. And so all enemies that would see the tribe of God would flee. And no one's going to stop the enemies. No one's going to stop God. So the idea is that thanks to God's kindness of giving strength to God, God has the ability to keep on expanding its situation because people flee from God. That's what the Ebenezer says. Ramban says this refers to the inheritance of God. Remember, God is one of the tribes that took its inheritance on the other side of the Jordan. There wasn't a lottery for that. For the tribes in the land of Israel, it was going to be by lottery system in the times of Yoshua. They requested, the tribe of God requested all of the land of Sichon and Og. And there were two and a portion of a tribe looking for that land. So Moshe just said, fine. It happens to be that God had a larger swath of land than the other tribes did, because God was plagued by a different set of rules. In other words, there's only so much. Just ask in the Middle East. There's only so much of Israel to go around, so there's somewhat of a limitation. So whereas on the Transjordan, there was a lot of land there, and there was a limited number of tribes who wanted it. So that's God getting a wide inheritance, a larger inheritance than others. Now, God's not the only tribe like that. What about Reuven? Reuven also inherited on the Transjordan. So why doesn't he say a similar thing for Reuven? Moshe said other nice things for Reuven. That he doesn't have to say more. Ramban says maybe the descendants of God took more than the descendants of Reuven, because God were more impressive warriors. So they got the entire border area. It made sense that God, the stronger group, would be situated over there. So says Ramban, maybe it ends up that God got a larger inheritance and built up more cities than Reuven did. So therefore, that's why I would talk about the width of what God has, because God has more expansive than anybody else, including Reuven. And the Ramban says, look back at Sefer Bamidbar to understand why, but they, not tribe of God, were the initial people to ask for this whole arrangement. So therefore it makes sense. They should get a wider area. So this is a very interesting discussion as to what's going on with this. And I just want to see the Orach Chaim as well. Orach Chaim on Pasuk Chaf, Marchiv God, Perish, Hirchiv Hashem Lo Ben Chasim Rabim. You know what it means? Width doesn't mean space, says the Orach Chaim. It means that God gave them an expanse of assets. God. The whole context of God and Reuven asking for this land in the Transjordan was because they had a lot of livestock. So they said, this land is great for livestock. So Blessed be the one who gives an expanse to God, gives a lot of cattle to God. That's what the Rachaim says. So just to sum up, Rashi says it has to do with the shape of their inheritance. The Ibn Ezra says it has to do with the fact that people give a wide berth to God because they're strong, and thank God that the people of this tribe are so powerful. The Ramban says it has to do with the size of the inheritance on the Transjordan, and the Rachaim says it has to do with just the fact that they got so much livestock in the first place. Okay, interesting question. Let's jump ahead, chapter 34, verse 1. Chapter 34, verse 1. The brachos are now over. Vayal Moshe me'avos Moav al har Nevo rosh hapiskah she'al pnei Yericho. Moshe comes up to the top of a mountain. Vayareu Hashem es kol haaretz es hagilad advan. And God showed him all of the land of Israel. It's a very, and if you look at verse 4, Vayom Hashem love. Hashem says to Moshe, this is the land which I swore to the patriarchs that I would give to their offspring. I've shown it to you in your eyes, but you're not going to go there. What's the purpose of showing Moshe this land? Is it that Hashem's word that Moshe's not going to believe him? What's the purpose of showing him the land? So if you look at the end of the Ramban on Pasuk Aleph, it's about the last 4 or 5 lines or so of the Ramban on Pasuk Aleph. Ramban says, "V'tam hamara hazos shehirou." The reason to show Moshe this, bavur shoysa aretz malei kol tov. The land was full of goodness. Tzvi l'chol ha'aratzos. It was this immensely desirable land for all lands. Me asher ha'yagal l'fan of rov ha'ava shel Moshe Rabbeinu oives Yisrael, because Hashem knew the affection Moshe Rabbeinu had for the land of Israel. Simcho birvos hatova biros einav. It brought Moshe joy to see this beautiful land and be told that it was going to go to his nation. So it's just a way for Moshe to leave this world with a feeling of happiness and satisfaction. This beautiful, beautiful land that he saw with his own eyes. He sees its beauty. It's going to go to his nation. So that's just interesting, Ramban. Let's go to verse 10. Verse 10. V'lo kam navi od b'Yisrael k'Moshe. There was no other prophet that rose up in Israel like Moshe. Asher yida'o Hashem panim el panim. That God knew him face to face. What does that last phrase mean? There was no other prophet that God knew face to face. What does it mean that God knows him? What does that even mean? Let's see the Ramban. Ramban on Pasuk Yud. Asher yida'o Hashem panim el panim. Shahil libo gaspo. The Ramban starts off by quoting Rashi that Moshe was very comfortable with Hashem. Whenever Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to speak to Hashem, he was able to. You have different places where Moshe Rabbeinu says to the people, I'm going to have to go ask God. Give me some time. I need to go ask God. He doesn't say, let me wait for God to talk to you. He says, I'll go ask him. So Moshe Rabbeinu's dynamic of communication with God was unique even for a prophet. It was face to face. Says Rashi, what does it mean it was face to face? Moshe Rabbeinu could call whatever he wanted. That was the dynamic. Veinenu nachon. Ramban says, I don't think this is correct. Ramban says, it doesn't sound like that, because if the point is Moshe's ability to reach out to God, then what it should say in the pasuk is that he knew God face to face. Is that what it says in the verse? It says that God knew him face to face. It sounds like the unique aspect of Moshe's prophecy is the manner in which God reached out to Moshe. So that doesn't sound like what Rashi said. It's related to the phrase, I'll know you by name. Moshe says to God, you said that I've known you by name. What is that? What does that have to do with knowing you? Yomar, Shlokam Naviot B'Yisrael K'Moshe, Asher Gidlo Hashem Liose Love Panim El Panim B'Tibur. What does God mean when he says to Moshe that I know you by name? What it means is I have a special relationship with you. I have a special dynamic with you. So Yida'o Hashem means God gave Moshe a special status. Now, what does it mean, panim el panim, face to face? Skipping ahead. Well, actually, I'm sorry, not skipping ahead. V'tachin, it's possible. Ki bavur sheshnei anashim hamisra'im panim el panim nodim ze lazeh b'ru'yahi. It could be the pshat that two people who appear face to face know each other very well by seeing the other's face. Amar she'yido Hashem panim el panim ki lo ratz lahaskir she'yido Moshe kain l'chavot shomala. So the first idea the Ramban says that maybe it's just a language that God gave him a special honor, that it was a face-to-face relationship. The other possibility the Ramban says is if I normally talk to you up close, then I recognize the contours of your face, the aspects of your face in a very unique way. So what it means is that Moshe knew Hashem face to face. Moshe's clarity about Hashem was a whole different level. Now, why does it say that God knows Moshe face to face? Shouldn't it say that Moshe knows God face to face? It says Ramban, it's not respectful. God doesn't have a body. We're going to say, yeah, Moshe recognized God's nose. What the words don't even, not only does the words not make sense, but it's not even respectful. So the point is, this is a way, sort of like almost a mushal, a little bit of demonstrating the tremendous closeness God had with Moshe. Skipping ahead a few lines of Derech Emes, the Ramban says, what I really think the pshat is, Sheyido Hashem panim el panim, that God knew him face to face, l'dav kabo be'eshetava ruach b'Moshe, that God connected to Moshe whenever the Spirit would come to him. V'chein hoya beis matan Torah. That's like what it was when the Torah was given. Moshe had a close bond with Hashem, a close feel for the spirit of the words that God was conveying. The people heard Hashem, but that was just a voice that they heard. Moshe was like one with the message. So just to sum up, Rashi says it's a language of Moshe should initiate the conversation whenever he wanted. The Ramban says either it's God knowing him is just a language of honor, or it means that they like knew each other face to face, so to say, they had such a close dynamic, or it means that Moshe really understood what Hashem was saying. He didn't just hear the words. And I just want to share with you an Orach Chaim on this pasuk. It's the second Orach Chaim on this pasuk, on pasuk Yod. It said in the pasuk, there was no Navi in Israel like Moshe. That's a very famous thing on this. There was one Navi out of Israel like Moshe, that was Bilam. There's a famous medrash like that. But the Orach Chaim has another beautiful pshat just to think about. There was no Navi in Israel like Moshe. Says the Orach Chaim, Ramaz, this hints, Shekol Sagas Nevu'asa Haisa B'Emtsos Yisrael. Moshe was able to prophesy what he prophesied because of Klal Yisrael. That Moshe was the greatest of the Nevi'im, but he still only had his prophecy to that level because he merited it. He merited it through the merits of the Jewish people, the Jewish nation. Interesting thing to think about. So we spoke about various ideas of what it means that God widens God, expands God. We spoke about the significance of God showing Moshe the scene of Israel. And we spoke about various ideas of what it means that God knows him face to face. We spoke at the Orach Chaim, why it says he was a prophet in Israel.